Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we'll get started in 1 minute. Yeah. And the quick thing, so if you haven't cloned the workshop repo yet, could you just clone it right now, because all the materials you need are in the repo. So this is our Skill 101 webinar repo. Yeah.
So can you drop a link to that in chat?
Okay, sure.
And in the meantime, I will just do a quick intro. My name is Aubrey. I'm the head of operations at Cadence. I'm super excited to be putting on this webinar today with Yuhuan. This is an encore performance of a seminar that we gave in person at a scientific agent summit in SF last month. And it was really well received, so we wanted to do it again online. If you're not familiar with Cadence, we are the maintainer of one of the largest scientific skills repos on GitHub to date. We have over about 30K stars on that. And we also have a platform called Cadence Web, which is a cloud-based co-scientist that you can kind of submit questions, submit your data to, and it will do a deep scientific analysis of it. We are offering free credits for that platform right now, $30 in free credits for new signups. I'll drop the link in the chat after we get started. But yeah, the webinar today is about an hour and a half. We'll spend the first 30 minutes going over a slide deck explaining what a skill is and going into depth about that. And then we'll do some Q&A if people want to build along and pop in with any questions they have, any challenges that come up as they try to build their own skill. We're happy to help. And we'll save about 20 minutes at the end to do some show and tell if anybody built a skill or is currently working with skills and they want to share what they've been working on. We're more than happy to do a little show and tell with us. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Yuhuan for the webinar. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Aubrey. So just briefly introduce myself. So my name is Yuhuan. I'm currently working as the AI engineer at Cadence. And all right, so before we start, I just want to do a quick poll. So I think everyone can just click on the raise hand button in Google Meet. So I do have two questions for everyone. So the first question is, who's actually installed or used a skill before? If you have installed or used a skill, feel free to click on it. Yeah, great. If you guys have used a skill. Yeah, and the second question is, who has written their own skill from scratch? Perfect. Yeah, so this would be a beginner-friendly workshop. So I'm assuming like no prior knowledge is needed. So we'll go through the basics together. And if you are already familiar with all the stuff, feel free to explore on your own using the guide PDF. So what I mean is this one. So we have the workshop slides and the workshop guide here in the repo. All right, go back to the slides. So first, I want to introduce like what is an agent skill and why do we care? So for the definition, an agent skill is a small folder that teaches a coding agent how to do something it isn't good at itself. So you can think of it at this way. So the model, the cloud, GPT, like whatever you use, they are already very smart. So it's not lacking intelligence. What is usually lacking in your specific way of doing something. For example, your own workflow, or a procedure that your lab does in a particular way. So a skill is like an expertise you hand to the model. You are not making it smarter. You're just giving it the specific knowledge and steps it was missing. And then the skill description. So this is what makes the agent reach for the skill at the right moment. So skills load on demand. Only when your requests match that description, the skill will get launched. And a lot of people, they might just say like, isn't skill just like long prompt in a folder? So this is a fair question. So there is an overlap, but they're not exactly the same. With a long prompt, the whole thing will just sit in the context every time. But with a skill, only the description is always there. And the full skill will only load when the skill actually launched. So you will not paying thousands of extra tokens on every turn. And that's especially important if you are building something for production. And honestly, the simplest way to know that you need a skill is that if you catch yourself explaining the same thing to the model over and over, that's a skill waiting to be written. And yeah, one last thing. So all the skills, they follow the open agent skill standards. So it's originally created by Anthropic. It's now adopted across Cloudco, Cursor, Codex, and more. So if you build a skill once, you can use it everywhere. Right, the next slide. So this is a real use case. So to see why skill matters, we ask Claude to write a short scientific report on a topic. So first is without any skill, and then with scientific writing skill, our cadence scientific writing skills. Yeah, so we use the same model, we use the same prompt. So we let the model to write a roughly 2-page scientific report on gene editing with figures and citations. And as you can see, this is the report created without any skills. So you can see it's just plain text. There's no real figures. You can see they have some ASCII text arranged to look like a diagram, but it's not real diagram. And also, we don't know whether the sources are real or not. Like you have to search one by one in Google to check. And this report is generated with our scientific writing skill. So now we have real multi-panel figures, and we also have actually named citations so that you can click on the link to verify that it's a real source. All right, so the gap here is the entire value of the skill. And all the skills there came from our cadence repo, and there's a lot more skills in the repo. So now we have 135 plus scientific skills, and each is reviewed by an actual domain scientist. Together, we have 250 plus databases and data sources. We also have 60 plus optimized Python packages. For today's demo, I'm not going to walk through our full repo because the setup needs an open router key, and I don't want everyone to stuck on API keys. So, but feel free to clone in and try it on your own time. I think after today, you'll know how to write your own skill. And reading other people's skill, it's one of the best way to get better at it. Right. Next, yeah, so what does skill actually works? So you have two things on the slides. So left side is the flow and right side is the folder. So look at this flow first. So when the agent starts, it reads each skill name and description. And when your request comes in and match one, that skill will load into the context and our agent will run it, and that's it. And on the right side, as I said earlier, skill is just a folder. The only one required file is the skill.md file. And everything else is just optional. So you can have a references folder for some documentation for the agent to read if needed. And you can also have a script folder for some code to run. And you can also put something in the assets folder. For example, some templates the agent could use. So we'll just start with a skill.md file today. All right, so this would be the last intro slide. So we have three things that make a skill good. And on the right side is also like what a real skill.md file looks like. So a description is a big one. So you have to make sure you write the description in third person, and you have to pack it with some actual words a user might type. For example, like summarize this, simplify this. So this is the first point. And second, you have to teach agent what's missing. So if Cloud has already do something well, a skill might add nothing to it. So you really need to find something really niche, like your specific way of doing it. And the third point is always keep your skill concise. So if your skill is too long, you can push the details into the references folder, like references or other scripts folders. Yeah, and that will load only when it's needed. So always have a short and sharp skill. And now look at the right. So this is a real plain language summary skill. And that's the skill that you are going to install in minutes. So at the top, between the dashes, that's the front matter. So we have the name, we have the description. So as you can see, the description is writing in third person tone, right? So we write dense or technical text into a clear plain language summary with fixed structures, blah, blah, blah. And you use it when the user asks to summarize, simplify, explain, or make something readable. Right. So yeah, and after the dashes, you can see we also put the actual instruction, right? So there is a when to use section, and there's also a output format. So we have like too long, don't read. Also summarize why it matters. So summarizing one and two sentences. And we also have 3 to 5 bullet points for the key points. And we can also put a caveats in the output format. And finally, we can put a set of rules, like no jargon without a 3-word plain explanations, prefer everyday words, and you keep the whole thing under 200 words unless the user asks for more. Yeah, and do not invent any facts. So yeah, that's the whole anatomy. So I think that's the entire concept. So everything from here will be hands-on, so we can go and set up our environment. Yeah, so for this workshop, yeah, we have to install the Cloud Code, and you have to sign in with a Cloud Pro or Max plan. And you should also have an IDE that you like. So we recommend Visual Studio Code here, or you can use Cursor, whatever you want. Because after installing the Cloud Code, we have to run it inside your IDE terminal. And in that way, we can have like one window like to edit the files. You have also the terminal to run the cloud. Yeah. And on the right side, we have all the comments. So please clone our repo here, the workshop repo, and make sure you go to the correct directory. Yeah, so let me just briefly screen share my Visual Studio Code. All right. So yeah, so first of all, you can always check that whether your cloud is installed or not. So you can do something like cloud -- version. So you can see my cloud code is already installed. So this is my version. Yeah, and on the left side, we have our repo. So I can briefly go over. So we have some example skills. So here we have a warm-up skill that we are going to install in a minute. So this is the plain language summary skill we just see. And we also have some sample inputs you can play around with, or you can just copy paste while you're testing. And we also have a templates folder. So we have a blank template for you to drop in your own ideas. And we also have another example skill. I'll demo how to use that later. And we also have a user case folder. So these are just the 2 PDF about the gene editing from the introduction part. So if you want to see the difference after this workshop, feel free to click on this 2 PDF and yeah, read it. You don't have to worry about other inputs. So all the sample inputs, they're just public or they're synthetic, so they're really safe to copy and paste. Yeah, I think that's everything for the setup. And now we can ready to install a skill. And yeah, let's go get it. So first of all, we will create a skill .cloud/skills folder. So we'll do something like make directory .cloud/skills folder. Yeah, so you can see we have the folder here. So this is our repo skill folder, and all our skills will be inside this. And you can also list cloud/skills. So it's empty right now because we haven't installed anything, but yeah, it's fine. And yeah, I think we can launch the cloud code right now. So you can see we have this cute cloud code inside our terminal. All right, so first of all, we can try a prompt like this. So I'll paste in a sample blog post from our Cadence official website. So we can write something like, give me a plain. Oh, by the way, you can type in the skills to see if there are any skills inside your cloud code. And right now we don't have anything. Right. So we'll type something like, give me a plain language summary of this. So we'll see what cloud does on its own without any skills. So, and then you can copy paste this cadence block txt. So I just scraped this from our official website. So it's a really long block, technical block, and the format is messy. So let's just copy paste this into cloud code. Yeah, and one tip for today is that just paste the text directly. Do not like drag and drop, and do not do something like this. So do not drag and drop and put the file directly, the directory here, because Cloud will go and read that file, and they may look around the repo, and it might also find our answer template. Yeah, and in that way, we are just like letting the Cloud reading the cheat sheet. And this is only specific to today's workshop repo, because we put some templates and example skills in here on purpose. But in your own project, your working directory probably won't have anything like that. So like day to day, you're totally fine to do the drag and drop. But here, like for a clean before and after comparison, we will just like paste the text. All right. Now let's hit return. Yeah. So you can see we have. Okay. So here is the summary provided by Cloud. It's very long. So as you can see, it's freeform. It's fine, but it's really long. And Cloud has also like formulate its own outline. So every time you ask, you might get a slightly different structure. And if you are busy, like you still have to scan a lot of text to find the one thing you care about. But after we install the skill, you can see the difference. So right now you can do Control-C 2 times to exit the cloud code. And now we're going to install our example skill. So we're going to use this skill, the plain language summary skill. So we'll write some command like copy our workshop. Let me just copy paste the route here. Yeah, so we run this command, which means we just copy the example skills into our project skill folders. Yeah, and you can see like in the skills folder, we already have the example skill. And now we can run the same prompt one more time. So we go back to our cloud code. And now if you type / you can see that we have the plain language summary skill here. Right? So that means our skill is ready to launch. So we do exact the same prompt. And let's see what's different. Yeah, still, you have the long blog post. It's sprouting, it's taking some time. Yeah, if you look at the contents of this plain language summary skill, so I also put an example into it. So just let our agent better understand what we want. And yeah, you can now see the terminal that the plain language summary skill has been successfully loaded. And now we have a much shorter summary provided. So you can see the answer follows the skills fixed structure, right? So we have the too long don't read, we have why it matters, we have the key points, we have the caveats, so the structure that we want. And just in case you're curious, so this blog post is about like we merged 78 separate databases skills into one router, and that's just cheaper in context, and also better on some cross database questions. Yep. Yeah. So in this case, you can just know exactly where to look every time. So we have the fixed structures. All right. And there's another trick. So if you want to turn a skill off, you can do something like this. You can do /skills. And now you'll see all the skills you have inside this project. So you can press return to switch between. So if you go to off, that means we just turn the skill off for the cloud code to not read it. Okay. And there's actually another way. So you can also create a skills disable folder, which is parallel to this cloud/skills folder, so that every time you want to remove a skill, you can just move that skill into the parallel folder. But that may take more time. So in this workshop, I'm just going to do this way. So yeah, to hit the return and switch between, to turn on and turn off the skills. All right. And by the way, so the name only, which means like only the name counts towards the context, right? And also if it's user only, that means it's hidden from the cloud discovery, but you can still like run it manually from the menu. All right, so yeah, so this is the warm up, and right now we are going to build your own skill. So if you already have some idea in your mind, you can just go ahead and you can try this template file to create your own skills directly. But if you don't have something in mind, you can just go with me and we can build one complete skill together. So we are going to create a paper draft skill that can expand a paper abstract into a structured draft. Yeah, so into introduction, methods, results, discussion, the format. Yeah, so we can, before we build anything, like we can always let Cloud see what Cloud will do without the skills. So you can write something like this. So without any skills, we let the Cloud to expand this abstract into a full paper draft with introduction, method, results, and discussion. So copy paste this abstract into here. Oh, just in case if you are curious, so this is just a paper, like abstract paper about RNA sequencing. So the problem they're solving just some noise in the data, and they provided some statistical method, and they also tested on a really big data set, like over 300,000 cells. So go back to our plot. So we want to expand this abstract, and you can also write something like this. So you can say that after you're done, please put it in .md format. Yeah, and now we can see how, oh no, so now you can see that, let's just pause it. You can see that the Cloud is trying to read our workshop pack. So it's trying to read the sample inputs, like the sample skills we provided. So this is definitely not what we want. So we want to keep Cloud like from accidentally reading our prepared templates. So I think I'm just gonna to go to another folder. So I'm going to go to another outputs folder. Right, it's an empty folder, and we are going to launch the Cloud here one more time. So we just copy paste the same prompt. Oh, let me just do it one more time. So expand this abstract into a full paper format. Just copy paste and then copy paste our abstract. And then after you're done, please put it in the .md format in this folder. Oh, so Bella, let me just add that output folder into our workspace. So now we have this output folders. We drag that to our cloud code, and now we are ready to hit the return. Yeah, it might take some time. So like, why are we, I can see that it's drafting the full paper now, and we'll save it as a markdown file. So like, why we need this skill is that I think a lot of you might have probably done something like this before. So you have an abstract, maybe from a conference submission, and you want to formulate it into a full manuscript. And that's exactly why we're building this today. So we want a skill that can take a short abstract and expand it into a structured draft without invent anything. All right, so tinkling, yeah. Let's just wait for some time, and the result will show up in this outputs folder. Yeah, feel free to try on your side. This typically will take a few minutes. Yeah, and every time if you want to keep Cloud from accidentally reading your template, you can just do a separate folder and yeah, like saving your outputs into a separate folder outside these repo. All right, so do you want to create, okay, we already have our paper draft.md file. So you just click on yes. All right, so we have this markdown file. Okay, perfect. Let me just change it to the preview mode. All right, so as you can see, this is a really good draft, but there are some problems in it. So you can see it's trying to invent some formula that we never mentioned in the abstract. And also it's trying to, yeah, fabricate some of the specific data set names. Yeah, it's good, but just like too much hallucination in this draft. I also have a references here, but we don't know whether it's real or not. All right, and now we're going to write our own skill. So let's just exit the cloud code. And let me go back to our skill 101 webinar. All right, we have everything here right now. So we are going to make the folder first. So the folder name has to be the skill name. So it should be lowercase and hyphens only. So we can make a directory skills. We can call it paper draft. Yeah, we can see this inside the skills folder. Now we're going to write something inside the skill.md file. So you can just like open and copy paste from this example file that we provided. Where is it? Yeah, we have a paper draft skill example, like everything is ready. So just for convenience, I'm just going to do some copy paste right now. Yeah, so let me just paste this into, oh, don't forget to create your skill MD file. All right, so now you can see we copy and paste the front matter. So the name is paper draft, so should be exactly the same as the folder name. And we have our description. So it's in third person tone, and you should use some trigger words like expand a paper abstract into a structured IMRAD, which is introduction methods, blah, 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 draft, right? Yeah, and use when the user want to paste an abstract, right, or report from an abstract of summary. Okay, perfect. And now we can go ahead and write the body part. So we can also copy paste from this example skill. So just wait for a second. All right, save it. Can change it to preview mode so you can better read everything. So we have a section of when to use. So we want to, when the user want to paste, right, an abstract, we want to use the skill. And we also specify the output format. So we want to write in full paragraphs, no bullet points. So we want to put introduction, methods, results, discussion in the draft. And there is also some rules here. So for example, when we need to cite a source, we can insert something like this. So citation needed, we have the square brackets. Or like when a specific value or method detail is missing, we can insert something like to do, add details. Do not fabricate anything. Yeah, and we can also put an example here for the agent to better understand. All right, I think we are ready to load it into Cloud Code. So let's get back to our Cloud Code. And now if you type / you can see we already have our paper draft skill loaded. So we are ready to go. So we just copy and paste the same prompt we have earlier. Yeah, this time we don't need to move out to the output folder. Just in the empty format. Okay. Yeah, you can see that our paper draft skill has been successfully loaded. And now it will take some time to get the results. Okay, do you want to create this empty file? Yes, we do want to create it. So we hit enter, and now we can see this. So see the full draft 2 in the project root. So let's see. We have this empty file inside our skill 101 webinar repo. So let's go to the preview mode. Yeah, and now you can see the difference, right? So with this skill, so we have specific structure that we want. So in methods, introduction, methods, results, discussion, right? And we also have a gaps to fill section, which is perfect. And also like we have like, we do not fabricate anything. So we insert the square brackets to do if something need to do, and also citation needed for later step if you want to add a citation into this draft. Yeah, all right, and there we also have a checklist. So if you want to go further and build upon this draft. All right, you can just go back to this one to see the difference. Right, so we have fabricated digits and formulas here. I don't even know where they come from. Yeah, so that's the value of skills. Okay, so I think now is the time for everyone to build your own skill. Let me go back to my slides. All right. Yeah. So yeah, now you can do your own skill. So we have the loop here on the left side of the slide. So we have the same steps we just walked through. And also you are not starting from the blank file. So we have a template, an empty template for you to start with. You can put your idea inside it. And if you have time, you can also try to create a tiny evaluation or rubric. You can run your prompt on and off, and you can fill in some like the rubric you design. So I actually designed these four tracks based on what the baseline go wrong. So like whether the skill has the correct structure, whether are there any fabricated numbers, are there any invented citation, do we have a gaps to fill section. And if you're stuck on any ideas, you can grab one from the slide here. So I would recommend to just pick something with a clear right answer. For example, a format or a checklist. So you can see the before and after is very obvious. For example, you can do a commit message format. For example, if you want to have same structure for every pull request every time, you can write a commit message skill. That's an example. And yeah, no API keys needed today. We can just keep it simple. And yeah, also if you want to go bigger, you can also add these three optional folders. So references, scripts, and yeah, assets. Yeah, so in my paper draft skill, I might add a references folder, like for some target journal, like word limits or target journal citation style before drafting. And I might also add some Python script to the scripts folder. For example, we want to extract all the numbers from the abstract. We want to treat all the numbers as mandatory, like do not change all of the numbers. Yeah. Yeah, if your IDE have a built-in AI assistant, you can always ask it to draft those files based on the skill you've already written. Yeah, so I think we'll now have roughly 20 minutes to build your own skill, right? If you get stuck, like you can just click on the raise hand button, and me and Aubrey can grab you in the breakout room to debug it.
And I think in the meantime, we're happy to also take any questions. I'll kick it off with one question, Yuhuan. So you just said that we could extend our skill.md by adding these like references, scripts, and assets.
Mhm.
Why would we want to structure it with separate folders versus just like putting everything into that skill.md file?
Yeah, so that is a really good question. So as I mentioned earlier, that the key point of writing a skill is to make it short and sharp. So usually we have to keep the skill under 500 words, and all the rest of the words you have to put it into some external folders, and that can speed up your skill when you're loading the skill. And it's also you can better help the skill to understand where to use which folder. Yeah, I can also show a quick. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah. Michelle, do you want to come up with mute to ask a question, or we're happy to like do a breakout room to troubleshoot with you?
I haven't started writing the skill yet, but I had a question about having multiple skills. How can we make the agent differentiate between the skills? Like sometimes I would want it to call a specific skill, but not the other. If I have multiple skills, then how can I make sure that it uses the right skill?
Yeah, so that is a really good question. So as I said earlier, so all the skills, they are loaded on demand, right? So if you want to make sure the agent recognize the correct skill, so you always have to make it clear inside your description session. So I would always recommend write a very, I would say a very short, small specific skill. So like one workflow for each skill, and you have a very clear descriptions. So in that case, our agent can use them in the correct way. And also like all the time, like there's only one skill will get loaded into the agent. So you just had to make it clear inside the description to make sure the agent used the right skill.
And I think the other thing I'll add is like when in doubt, if you have very similar skills, you can explicitly call it by telling the model like use this skill, name the skill, and just make sure it triggers rather than hoping the model will call it. Because I think too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Yuhuan, is that like depending on how smart your model is, it may not invoke a skill when you intend it to.
Yeah, you can always type slash the skill name so that you can force the model to use the skill you want.
Great question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just to follow up, can I also use multiple skills at the same time when they're different?
So typically you can just load one skill on a time, but if you want to do different skills, you might have to use some sub-agent and you delegate specific skill to different sub-agents inside the Cloud Code. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Or we're also happy to do some like community knowledge share or show and tell style. If there's anybody who has been working with skills as a hobby or using them in their daily work, would love to hear how you're using them and what you're using them for.
Oh, and one thing I just want to add to the previous question. So yeah, you can definitely use multiple skills at the same time, like as long as they do different things. So that's totally fine. Yeah. And yeah, Cloud will just pick the skills, pick different skills based on your requests. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to pop some links in the chat again. For folks who joined halfway through, we do have a GitHub repo that has all of the slides Yuhuan presented today, as well as a PDF with step-by-step instructions for how you can replicate the workflow that she demoed. There's also a link to our scientific agent skills, which has hundreds of ready-to-use out-of-the-box skills for you to download and install into your Cloud Code instance. If you are using skills for scientific applications, these are all customizable, so you can download them, customize them to your own workflows or how you like to perform certain tasks. But they're a great reference starting point if you're just getting started with skills. And then finally, there's a link to our Cadence web, which we are offering 30 free credits to new users for a limited time. And we'll leave a couple of more minutes to see if the participants on the call have any other questions. Otherwise, we will probably wrap it up a little bit early. I guess Yuhuan, while we're still here, I'll ask you one more question. So if somebody wanted to get started with scientific agent skills, like how would you, what would you do? Like just download the GitHub repo, drag and drop into your Claude?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So I think for skills, you can always go to the official Anthropic materials to learn. Like, for example, I think there is a Anthropic /skills repo, a GitHub repo, right? So I think this is a really good way to start to learn the pattern. And yeah, so these are maintained for Cloud Code. And there are also some domain-specific libraries you can try to use. So for science, please use our scientific agent skill, our Cadence scientific agent skill repo. So yeah, we already have 30K stars right now. Yeah, feel free to use it. You can install a small subsets for your current project rather than the whole collection, and each skill can ask instructions, and some may run code, and some can call external services. And I will also, and there's also some community sites, for example, like skills.sh or like skills MP, I think. Yeah, so here are the agent skills marketplace. Yeah, so yeah, but like always read the MD skill.md file before installing anything. Like, must be very cautious. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's some materials I would recommend for beginners to start with. And also, actually, in our slides at the very end, like we also have like links and further reading. Yeah, so you can click on that and to try. So we have the cloud code documentation. Yeah, good way to install, know how to install cloud code, how to use cloud code. We also have the agent skills, Anthropic agent skills documentation. We also have, yeah, Anthropic, the guidelines. So everything is here in our slides. And also our slides is inside our 101 webinar repo. Yeah, so feel free to clone it and read through it after this webinar. Yeah, we have the guide PDF here. So all the comments, you do not need to memorize them. You can just copy paste from here. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. We will give you back some time in your afternoon. We'll be sharing a recording of this webinar with participants. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Yuhuan or myself on LinkedIn, social media. We're on X, we're on YouTube. Feel free. We're happy to help you get started with skills. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.